December 20th, 2021. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Lori Dean Wiley, member of Epic Church. If you will please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord Jesus, don't let us miss out on this Christmas season. Don't let us let the busyness take over from remembering the Prince of Peace that you are. Lord, I just ask that you allow us to work together, to talk together, to enjoy and come to a new year with a better understanding. Lord, we invite you to this meeting tonight. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
DeLucy.
Here.
Steinmeier.
Here.
Hobart.
Here.
Mayor Weir.
Here. We do have some citizens who requested to speak to the council tonight. One of them is a non-resident, so we will need a motion to suspend the rules of order to allow for him to speak tonight.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Motion passes. Our first citizen request is Laura Dominic, who requests to speak to the council regarding bill number 21-836. Ms. Dominic.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Appreciate the time. Laura Dominic, 3525 Blue Ridge Boulevard. I'm here regarding bill number 21836. Section 1 of that bill states that the council shall lift the city's state of emergency. Just a few general points about the current state of emergency. How many citizens even know we are under a state of emergency? I'd say very few do. What negative effects are there to the city and citizens of maintaining the state of emergency? None that I'm aware of. What positive effects are to the city and the citizens? The city is eligible for monies and grants to continue to fight this pandemic. So the inverse of that is that ending the state of emergency will mean the city will have to pay for the testing, contact tracing, data collection, vaccines, and communication with no outside financial support. Chief Short has given multiple examples of grants the city would not have been eligible for had the current state of emergency not been in place. And after Mr. Walker's presentation a few weeks ago about the state of the general fund, it doesn't seem fiscally responsible to intentionally put undue financial burden on the city. When will the pandemic end? No one knows exactly when it will end, but it will definitely not end in the foreseeable future. A few statistics from the Jackson County and the city's health department's dashboards show us that we are not out of the woods. So, my Vanna White presentation. Number 1, the city's current positivity rate is 20.63%. That should be stunning to anybody. Jackson County's current positivity rate is only 17.02, though still very scary. We are above them. Next, 1 month ago, so Thanksgiving, 1 month ago, the city's positivity rate was 8.81%. Sorry, if you can't see that over there. That's a 1 month increase of 130%. Just on the radio tonight, as I was driving over, the CDC has currently released information that the Omicron variant, is responsible for 73% of cases right now, overtopping Delta. And if we compare the current city to Jackson County and where we were a month ago, it's sad to say that at the height of the Delta variant in August, we were only at 18.86%. Again, ugly. As you can see, we are not out of the woods. In fact, we are careening headlong into the woods. So no, I don't think ending the state of emergency is prudent. I find it even more audacious in relation to Section 1 that members of the City Council believe they have the ability to vote to end the current state of emergency. Section 2.5 of the Charter states the mayor is hereby authorized to declare the existence of an emergency in the city, which by inference, the mayor is the only official who can end it. Unless you intend to violate the city charter again tonight, I would recommend amending the bill to remove Section 1 or tabling the bill altogether. If violating the charter once isn't enough to warrant removing Section 1 or tabling this bill, look to Section 3 of the bill for a second opportunity. Section 3 states that any future state of emergency regarding health or pandemic events for the city shall require a supermajority vote of the council to go into effect. Because the charter gives the mayor the sole discretion to declare and end a state of emergency, Section 3 of this bill would require an amendment to the charter. So what are the procedures to amend the charter? Starting again with the language that's in the charter, Article 15, Section 2 states the charter may be amended in any manner provided by the state constitution. So what manners does the state constitution provide? Article 6, Section 20 states, and I'm paraphrasing for the sake of time, amendments may be submitted to the electors. Amendments may also be proposed by the legislative body. The legislative body shall at once provide by ordinance that a proposed amendment shall be submitted to the electors at the next city election, not less than 60 days after its passage, or at a special election, if allowed by the city charter.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So unless you intend to violate the city charter and the Missouri State Constitution tonight, I would also recommend amending the bill to remove Section 3 or tabling it until such time as the council is ready to change the charter by bringing the amendment to a vote of the people. In closing, unless I have missed the mark entirely, it really disturbs me that these legal matters weren't sussed out prior to the bill being put on the agenda. The city has a city attorney, a city prosecuting attorney, and several outside counsels at its disposal, and any of them would have addressed these issues if a council member had asked. Was an attorney asked? Or was an attorney asked too late in the process to provide guidance? Nevertheless, at the very least, I expect council members to know the charter as well or better than a citizen, enough to research the issues for themselves. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Yolanda Heschel. Yolanda, did I pronounce your name correctly? Harshel. Please come forward. Yolanda wishes to speak to the council regarding the City of Independence utilities. If you would just state your name for the record, and the clerk will keep the time.
My name is Yolanda Herschel, and I appreciate you guys letting me speak. I have an issue with the City of Independence. They disconnected my
Yolanda,
services.
could I ask you, you can bend that microphone down a little bit so we
They disconnected my services over 2 months ago. I am a homeowner. I'm not a renter. I guess there's not help out here. I've gone to agencies. They have declined agencies putting on my account that I had repairs. So I've lost 2 pets. They turned off my water a month ago. I keep asking them, every time they tell me to do one thing, I do it, but they keep coming up with it. It's not helping me. I had to pay $500. They told me some pipes had to be replaced that were plastic. They had to be steel. I said, well, aren't those your pipes? They said, no, they're on the property line. I said, well, who determined that they're mine if they're on the property line? And I'm not getting any type of, who declines money if I'm trying to get assistance? I had COVID last year. I did not get paid. I had to quarantine twice. I didn't get paid either time for my job. I just had it again in August. They said because you're negative, you have to work. I said I intend to stay negative, so I'm not gonna work. I'm gonna quarantine like the CDC said. I'm not understanding what I need to do. I heard them talking to one lady when I was in there one day, telling her, and she was a homeowner. So when I asked about it, she said that doesn't pertain to you. I'm confused why it don't pertain to me, and I'm also a homeowner. And I'm in my car, and I think it's inhumane for this to be happening, because something's happening where I'm falling through the cracks or something's going on, because why can't I get assistance? I'm a homeowner, not a renter, but they're giving renters all kinds of stuff. So I've been talking to people in Jefferson City, and they've given me several agencies, but every time I go to the City of Independent Utility, they don't know anything about that. So I'm trying to figure out what I need to do, because I paid $550 to get these pipes that I'm not even sure if they were my pipes, being that they was on the line. So I don't know who determined that they were mine, but that's money I could have paid towards my bill. So what do I need to do to get this resolved? Because everything I do that
Okay,
they tell me to do, they told me to pay my water, they would turn my water back on.
So
I
we
paid
have
the
your-
water, they didn't turn it back on.
So we have your email and your telephone number on your sheet, as well as your address, so,
And it keeps going up, and I'm not there using it. So when I asked, why does it keep going up? They said, oh, we have certain fees you have to pay. Then they turned around and took it out my name, which made it even more harder for me to get assistance.
okay, so Mr. City Manager will get her contact information, we'll contact you after the meeting so we can proceed with our agenda tonight.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for listening.
Yep. Our next speaker is Jerry Winship, who wishes to speak to the council regarding Bill number 21518.
Mayor and members of the council and staff of the city. Appreciate the opportunity tonight to speak to you. Jerry Winship, Executive Director of the Nolan Road Community Improvement District. I want to talk to you about the Kmart Venture property, which is on the agenda, the 21518. This property's been vacant for the last 6 years, and nobody's been able to reach the owners of it to try to get it improved or anything like that. I know the city, different departments have tried, the legal department's tried, we have tried, and I did have one call returned out of about 20, and they just want to know, well, what do you want to do with the information? And we said we'd like to improve Nolan Road. Never heard anything back on any of it. It is owned by World Class Real Estate. They have offices in Austin, Dallas, and Los Angeles with multiple holdings, real estate holdings throughout those areas. Nate Paul is listed as the CEO of World Class Holdings. World Class, and I have here a couple articles that pertain to him. And here, Nate Paul defrauded a foundation of over $2 million on their properties. Another, in Austin, businessman Nate Paul lost 8 properties worth $138 million. And this has happened over and over. We, nor the city, has been able to make contact on that. And I know it's up for the second reading tonight, and would appreciate your affirmative action. They also own what used to be Venture Drive, and now the city, I think we changed it to Canterbury Drive.
You have 1 minute.
And they own that. Without ownership, nothing can be done in that way. I have presented to you some pictures, and each of you have those. Number one is the fire department, the police department. They've made numerous trips in there, show you how many times. Water department, you can see that big picture where that ran for 5 days. There's an area that we cleaned up twice. We took 3 truckloads of dirt out of there. Those 2 companies have a 2-year and 5-year lease, but they've had to put up their own electric lights this year in the parking lot. So I don't want to lose those. There's a 2-year and a 5-year lease. We're trying to keep business on Nolan Road, and we'd appreciate your affirmative action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our speakers who signed up in advance. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the council this evening? Okay, that takes us to our presentation resolution recognizing our Employee of the Month. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-835, a resolution recognizing Charlotte Oleko, horticulturist with the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Department as the Employee of the Month for December 2021. Whereas the City Employee Recognition Program recognizes outstanding performance by employees of the City of Independence, and whereas an employee committee selects the Employee of the Month for exhibiting the qualities and ideals that best represent public service. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Independence, Missouri, hereby declaring Charlotte Oleko as the City of Independence Employee of the Month for December 2021.
Okay, I would entertain a motion for approval of this resolution.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Before we call Charlotte up to receive her resolution, I just wanted to draw attention to just a few of the things that keeps Charlotte busy throughout the year, but especially at the holiday times, which I know so many have been out enjoying all of the special things that we've been able to do for Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and up until the New Year. So throughout the year, Charlotte serves as the staff liaison for our tree commission meetings. So if anybody's interested in joining our tree commission, they'll have the opportunity to work with Charlotte. She recently hosted a work day at the Independence Utility Center to prune the trees, remove T-posts, and remove some dead trees that had grown up around the property. If you saw the pumpkin tree that was at the Independence Uptown Market, Charlotte designed and decorated that tree. And then after Thanksgiving, she disassembled the pumpkin tree and redecorated it for the holidays in time for the mayor's prayer breakfast. It was absolutely beautiful. We did 5 live evergreen trees this year as part of the mayor's Christmas trees. So she coordinated the removal of those from the property owner who donated them and relocated them. They were installed and decorated at 4 different facilities throughout the city. She helped us design and deliver ornament kits to every 4th grade student in the Independence School District over a period of a few days, where we asked every student to create a bird feeder pine cone ornament that we placed on the tree at the Independence Utilities Center. She installed the lights on the trees and put up the exterior decorations at the Vale Mansion. She ordered and scheduled installation of 3 memorial benches at Waterfall Park and planted 2 memorial trees there at Waterfall Park. She maintains the Vale Arboretum, which has the Missouri State Champion smoke tree and 3 Casey area champion trees. Charlotte works throughout the year with scouting groups, and she recently worked with an Eagle Scout who created a map and booklet of the Vale grounds and the Arboretum. She works with the volunteer groups around our city to pick up trash, lay mulch, and other tasks that beautify the city. And last but not least, she oversees our Adopt a Spot and Adopt a Park programs. So Charlotte's an amazing resource for us. She puts in an incredible amount of time, volunteer time, coordinates a ton of volunteers to help our public properties and our historic properties look as beautiful as they do throughout the year. So Charlotte, for making all of our holidays a little bit more cheerful, thank you so much, and please come forward and accept your resolution. Okay, this brings us to the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mayor Ware. I move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Councilmember Hubbs indicated he wanted to pull items number 3 and number 5. Are there any other items any council member wishes pulled for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
number 7.
Okay. Any others? Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda minus item number 3, item number 5, and item number 7?
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Councilman Huff, item number 3.
Yes, I was reading through this, and the agenda information sheet was initially rejected because of a typo error, which was corrected. As I read down here further, the bid sheet that was attached, the summary that was provided at the agenda information sheet was sent out as a invitation to bid rather than a RFPQ, so no scoring took place on these bids. So I was going to move to amend to rescind this since it is not in line with our procurement policy.
Okay, so is it your motion to send this back out to bid?
Yeah, to send it back out,
Okay.
to resend it. So it's scored.
Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have a question about improving our work in front of us. I don't know if I can talk about it now or wait.
What?
On that, we didn't have a management analyst review the money. And it's let's not do that because we don't have a management analyst. We may not have a management analyst, but we need somebody to do their work within the city. So, Mr. Huff, if you'd consider us doing something that we should do, that would be great, but I can wait.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All right, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor, can I ask a
Yes.
question?
Yes.
Clarify. Thanks. So is the request to do a qualifications-based selection, do an RFQ instead of an RFP? Is that the
Well,
recommendation?
what I'm looking at is rather than a bid, to have a, level playing field here, there's no scoring, and we always require scoring to see what kind of contractor this is, how they rate in that respect. It's
For-
not only the bid.
For bids, we go by the total bid amount. So this would be, if you're asking, we would need to do a qualifications process. That would be more of an RFQ type approach.
So, Mr. City Manager, let me just ask a question, and make sure that we are asking for the proper thing. When we send something out for bid, the contractors who respond, I think you're being summoned, Lisa, are they pre-qualified? I mean, are these do qualified people who are pre-qualified are invited to bid? Is that how, I'm sorry, I just
So
want to
when
make sure.
when we do a solicitation like this, it's published on our purchasing page, and anybody can pull that down that's registered and bid on that.
Okay. So I believe what the motion is that we would ask, since that process, that didn't take place, and I understand why, because that's not typically what does take place when we're putting out bids. We're utilizing contractors who are already qualified, so they are not scored on their qualifications. They're scored on their ability to deliver the labor, the materials, and then present a pricing, which then we compare to the engineer's estimate, which I believe the engineer's estimate was do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, 2.2.
The engineer's estimate was 2.5 for.
2.5,
yeah.
and then the lowest bid was 2.2. So perhaps what I would suggest, maybe we amend the motion to say to rebid it because the contractors are already qualified, correct? I mean, in order to bid, you have to be a qualified contractor.
So there's two options here. One is to rebid it.
Okay,
The other is to go through a qualifications-based process. That would
Okay.
require scoring and criteria.
and can you tell us what I mean, just from your standpoint, from the staff's standpoint, what does the two of those processes look like? How long does that take? How much time and money does it cost us to do that? And is that
Okay.
considered to be an appropriate option for the council? I mean, we can ask for whatever we want, I understand that.
Sure.
Is it
So for,
appropriate to ask them to present qualifications? This is an extremely important project. I mean, all of our projects are important. This one is especially important. It's one that we've had a long time coming, involved a lot of competition for federal funding to be able to fund this, and an important part of our city that has not seen a lot of investment. So I agree that we want to get this right and correct, so maybe an additional step might be warranted at this time, maybe. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth,
No, it's
Mayor
fine.
Pro
You're
Tem.
going down the same road, yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
so it would be typical for us, for this kind of project, for this size, it's under, it's $2.5 million, under $2.5 million. It would be typical for us to use the process we use. That's why we did it.
Yes.
If the council wants to go a different direction and go with a selection qualification-based process, we can certainly do that. We have a full set of plans already completed, and these contractors bid on those plans. So that's typically when you go through a qualifications-based process, the plans aren't completed yet. So if the council wants to do qualifications-based, we'll need to go back and do that. That's more of there's a few more steps involved with that. One is defining the criteria that we want to qualify people, and then we'll have them submit proposals. We'll score those and evaluate them. Then we'll have to negotiate a contract price with whatever firm we select.
Okay.
Right, and I just want to go, we want to continue the procurement policy. That's what I want to stick to. That's whatever we need to do to get that done. The scoring is very important, especially on a project this size.
So to be clear, we followed the procurement policy on this contract and this process. So we followed that process. If you all want us to go a different direction, we can do that.
So I know you follow the process, and this is something, we approve things like this all the time. I mean, the things are sent out for bid, and the respondents, we already have, for them to be on our qualified respondents list, they've already met qualifications to be able to respond to that bid. Is that, I don't know if I'm saying that accurately.
Madam Mayor,
Yes? Oh, hi.
if I can jump in here. Hi. In the procurement policy, there are a lot of different tools which staff can use to bring proposals forward to the city council, okay? One of those is an invitation to bid, which we typically use on a construction project like this. At the end of that process, there are two things that are done. We line them all up and look at who gave us the lowest bid, and we make sure that they are responsive. Do they have their performance bond? Do they have adequate staffing, added equipment? I mean, have they addressed all those kind of things to show, that they've got the ability to deliver on the job? Hopefully we have some kind of history with that firm that we can go back and see what other projects have they done those, to the city specifications and all of that. As a staff, we then have an obligation to bring forward to you the lowest bid from the most responsive vendor. What the deputy city manager is telling you is if you want to come up with a process like a request for qualifications, we will need to go back and identify 4 or 5 criteria, assign weighted percentages to those. You know, I would think maybe price would be one of those, years of experience, prior work with the city, and we would want to weight those criteria and then do the kind of scoring that the Mayor Pro Tem is referencing for a qualifications-based selection, not a bid-based selection.
I guess my question is that how intensive of a process is that? I mean, is that going to take us, you know, how much of a delay might that cause? We know these, all of the contractors who responded to this bid have done business with the city before, so it doesn't seem to me like that would be too much to ask, but I don't really know the answer to that question.
Yeah, my guess is it's a 6 to 8 week process to
Okay.
go from, we have to draft the RFQ and, you know, advertise it and let people respond in a thoughtful way and make a selection, negotiate a contract and a price, and
Okay.
then bring that back to the council. So at best, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe longer than that.
Okay. Okay, so that's not too terribly long, and considering we're in December.
Yeah.
Probably not going to do anything during that time anyway.
Yeah, we just point out one other thing. We can certainly do this. Just, we may have to go back and, because there are federal funds involved here, we may have to request an extension of our schedule.
And will you
because of
let
that.
us know if that's,
Yes.
I mean, if that.
Yep.
occurs?
Right, that comes in.
You know, I certainly don't have any criticism of the process that you undertook. I mean, that's what we normally do, and that's not my concern at all. It's just knowing how much and this isn't the biggest project we've ever done in the city by a long shot, but it's a very crucial one that is the beginning of things that could come, that could further enhance this area of town. So I really just want to feel like we know exactly what we're getting, so.
I understand. What might be helpful for us as we go down this road is if there are any specific qualifications, criteria the council wants us to use in this selection process, that would be helpful as we start drafting that, so we make sure we meet the goals and intentions that this council wants.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing none. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Huff,
Yes?
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, motion passes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I would like to make a suggestion that we get someone to follow the policy of the city council. We need to have a management analyst look at it and make a recommendation on the contract. And I understand we don't have a management analyst, but I'm not going to vote yes for a $2.5 million project if we violated the policy. So I cannot tell you how strongly it is to follow our policy.
Yeah, so a couple things there. One is this action, we did contemplate that step in here. We did say it would, the purchasing policy would need to be waived because we don't have a management analyst in place, and that step was missed. The other is I believe that position is still being posted right now and advertised, so those applications are still being taken.
Great, thank you.
May I ask a question?
yes.
Mr. Norris, or maybe Councilmember DeLucci, does the city, can we substitute like our legal counsel instead of a management analyst for that type of review?
I don't think we can
Unless you change your policy.
do that unless we
Okay.
change our policy, but I think that we can discuss, the council should discuss what we're going to do in the absence of paying a management analyst until we get one hired. Our charter requires that we have a full-time employee serve as management analyst. It does not, we've been through this before, it does not let us contract with an outside firm to perform that function or anything of that nature, but we may, I think that that's just something that we're going to need to discuss, in this case, if we could engage an independent auditor to, while we're seeking to fill that position, rather than, I mean, that's just something we're going to have to discuss with our
Yeah,
attorney, our city clerk, make sure we're in compliance with the charter, but also make sure we're in compliance with our policy. Mr. City Manager, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, having had that position in the past, I'm a little cautious that position reports directly to the council, and I think it's important to maintain those lines. So if the council does want to appoint an acting city manager, I think that would be appropriate. The one thing I would also caution you on is our charter, for good reason, prohibits anybody from holding two offices at the same time unless the council waives that by ordinance. So for example, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm only using this to be illustrative. If you wanted the city clerk to serve as the management analyst, you would have to do so by ordinance to allow that position to hold more than one title temporarily.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I was looking at this particular number 5 here, and I've been in the roofing business for quite a few years myself. It's talking about putting a coating on there for roughly, by the time they get through with the overruns, of $87,000. My experience with coatings is it's really a very, very temporary fix. I think I read on there it was 3 to 5 years expectancy on there, but not really any real warranty. On this roof's about 20 years old. It's probably need for a new one. There's a lot of different products out there, a lot better products, but I would like to make a motion to resend this, to reevaluate it, and see what other options there are with this.
second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Again, Mr. City Manager, I did have some questions about this. Particularly, again, I know that we followed our policy, so I'm certainly not any criticism to our staff. I'm just not, this draws attention to some things that I'm not sure our policy is necessarily adequate or serving the desire of the council in this particular case, or of the citizens. I mean, we do have a local preference ordinance. I mean, there's just a lot of things that caused me to question this. Since it's in excess of $75,000, it's required to pay prevailing wage, so that part is fine. I'm just not sure that this really allowed for us to get the most qualified and competitive bids. And so I would be in favor of postponing this as well, and putting this out in a more competitive bid process. I mean, the situation is unacceptable that, I mean, reading in the memo, in the information that, how deteriorated this roof is, that we're trying to protect very expensive equipment from getting rained on, and I'm embarrassed that we've let it get into this point and haven't addressed it sooner. I know roofing materials are very hard to come by right now, that the pipeline is pretty blocked up, but I'd really like to make sure that we do this correctly and go through a more competitive bid process. So I'd be in favor of, well, we can just, actually, we could just vote no on this tonight, and then that automatically would send it back to staff to bring back different options, rather than,
So what we would do
Making-
then is,
Yeah.
if this is voted down, what I understand you would like done is just to rebid it through our typical bidding process on public purchase instead of accessing the national cooperative purchasing agreements.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my thought, but I don't know that we need a motion to, it doesn't make any, I mean, the outcome is the same. I'm not sure we need a motion to vote no, we can just vote no. So either way is fine, but there's a motion on the table, so that accomplishes the same thing. Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes?
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, motion passes. Councilmember DeLucci, number 7.
Number 7 is a special sign permit application fee to be added to our schedule of fees. And the fee is $400. And when I bought my simple signs for 2, I had to pay $350 for both signs, so that's $700. Plus, if I want to do something special with it, I now have to add $400. And I don't see a reason, we're asking that this special sign go through Planning Commission. And because it's going through the Planning Commission, we need to charge $400. I don't think we need to charge $400, so I'm going to be voting against the fee application.
Okay,
I move approval of item 7.
Second?
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. City Manager, is this in line with, what's the basis for the increase?
I think I'd ask Tom Scannell to come up and explain this a little bit further.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Tom Scannell, I'm the Community Development Director. So earlier this year, we established a new process for how we handle sign variances. Prior to amending the UDO, if you wanted to install a sign that was outside of what the UDO, the Unified Development Ordinance, allowed, you had to go to the Board of Adjustment. That application fee was $400. What we did back in September is we amended the UDO to allow for a quicker and more thorough process by having to go to the Planning Commission. That UDO amendment got passed. What we failed to do was to add the fee, because we called that process, we couldn't call it a sign variance because that was the old process. With the new process, so we developed the term special sign permit. It's the same as what the sign variance was prior to amending the UDO. The fee was the same. The reason why we did that was just so that it can get to the Plan Commission quicker, because the Plan Commission meets twice a month versus the Board of Adjustment, which meets once a month. The Board of Adjustment, it had to be advertised, which added to delays and things like that. So that was the impetus and the reason for that change. And then what this does is this just adds it into the schedule of fees. And it's the same as what the old sign variance used to be.
So there is no additional fee, it's just being handled by the Plan Commission rather than the Board of Adjustment?
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I was a little bit confused on this. And the reason why the council made this, one of the reasons why we made this change back in September, which seems like a long time ago now, but it really isn't. If it goes to the Planning Commission, then does it then come to the City Council for approval, or does the Planning Commission, just remind me, because I know when something goes to the Board of Adjustment, their decision is final, and it doesn't come to the City Council. It can't be overturned by the City Council.
That is Correct. So on variances, the appeals of those go to circuit court.
Right.
On this process that we established here, if the applicant does not agree with the planning commission's decision, that decision can be appealed to the city council.
Right, okay. So that we felt when we voted on this in September was an improvement, I mean, for areas such as the Nolan Road CID, where they're trying to beautify the area, make the signage more consistent and appealing and for the community. It takes the council totally out of the process. And so this allows the council to come back into the process, who's the elected body. The Board of Adjustments is not. But this is simply transferring that collection from one section of the code to another section of the code, which we just failed to do when we made the
That's
decision
correct, yes.
to change the process. So it's not a new charge.
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
So is this an additional 400? Are we nickel diming these to death, or you're saying it's already there?
So you would only have to pay this fee if you wanted to do a sign that was outside of what the Unified Development Ordinance allowed. If you were a business and you were doing the signs that the UDO clearly spells out that you are allowed to have, then you don't even have to go through this process.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, item number 7 passes. Okay, we have 3 public hearings this evening. Our first is a public hearing for the application by Chandra Guna requesting a rezoning from O1 office residential to C2 general commercial for the I'm missing a word, for something located at 2400 South Lee Summit Road. This is new information only.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Rick Arroyo, the Assistant Community Development Director here at the city. This rezoning application was considered by Planning Commission on November 16th. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of it. This would be rezoning the southern portion of a building located at 2400 South Lee Summit Road from what's currently now an O1 to a C2. And I have no new information to add.
Okay, this is new information only. Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-082, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District 01 Office Residential to District C2 General Commercial for the south part of 2400 South Lee Summit Road in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, ordinance passes. Our next public hearing is for the application by Lacey Greer requesting a special use permit to operate a body art services at 2400 South Lee Summit Road, Unit 150. This is no new information only. Mr. Arroyo.
Thank you again. This special use permit was considered by Planning Commission again on November 16th. Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this. This, again, is that same address. This would be approving the use of a body art shop in there. And I have no new further information to add.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-083, an ordinance approving a special use permit to operate a body art shop at 2400 South Lee Summit Road, Suite 150 in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, ordinance passes. Our last public hearing is for the application received from Blue R 3421 LLC for a restaurant selling intoxicating liquor license for Carmen's Cantina and Mexican Grill at 3421 South Blue Ridge Cutoff. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, my name is Tom Scannell. I'm the Community Development Director. Carmen's Cantina and Mexican Grill is seeking to sell alcohol by the drink at their restaurant. The restaurant is located on Blue Ridge Cutoff, so it's just north of 40 Highway, just north of where the Highboy is on Blue Ridge Cutoff. Because this property is within 300 feet of residential, that is the reason why it has to come before City Council, and I have no further information to report.
Okay, thank you. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of this application? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any comments or questions from the council? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk.
Council action is requested on the application received from Blue R 3421 LLC for a restaurant selling intoxicating liquor license for Carmen's Cantina and Mexican Grill at 3421 South Blue Ridge Cutoff.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes. This takes us to our non-ordinance action item. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-836, a resolution lifting the state of emergency in Independence, Missouri.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I read the charter, and I don't think the charter goes beyond the mayor. So I think we'd have a problem with this resolution. And perhaps someone can inform me of what I've missed.
Is there any other comment?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
in the past, I've brought this forward a couple of times and was met with that we had to be, since the state of Missouri was still in a state of emergency, that we had to be in compliance with them, and that it was also used to gain access to federal money or state funds. And the state of Missouri is ending their state of emergency by executive order, I believe, ends December 31st. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So I just want to be in compliance with the state of Missouri, as we were told in the past that we needed to do. And so that's why I'm bringing it forward. Since they're ending it at the end of the year, I felt like Missouri, or Independence, should fall in line with the state.
Mr. City Manager, with your permission, I'd like to ask Chief Short if he could speak on this. The City of Independence declared a state of Missouri prior to, the City of Independence issued the state of emergency prior to the state declaring a state of emergency. Our incident command team that went into effect at that time consists of the city manager, the fire chief, the city attorney, the health director, and our public information officer, and members of our emergency operations management committee. So, Councilman Stein, I just am not clear. I don't recall ever being under the authority of the state of Missouri regarding the state of emergency. But since you're our leader on this topic and have read the whole binder and wrote the whole binder on emergency response and state of emergency, and you've been very helpful informing the council about the charter and the code. Can you just address that specifically?
Well, as far as the charter and the code goes, that probably should be up to the city attorney to make that determination. I don't believe that My belief is that just as in the federal government and just as in the state, the executive is the person that makes that declaration, which is the president and/or the governor, and as is under Section 44 city governments, which means the mayor makes those decisions. As far as the termination, because that's by proclamation, that proclamation is also done by the mayor. At this time, yes, the executive order by the governor is anticipated to expire in December 31st. However, it is not unusual for the governor to make the extension within the last 48 hours of that emergency. So if we would cancel our state of emergency and then the governor extends it, the mayor would have to again make that declaration again. Just an example of how we're still using it. Just this week, we were offered $25,000 by Mid-America Regional Council to provide testing. In a normal process, it would take us 2 to 3 weeks to go through a council meeting to accept that money through the city manager's approval and then to do all the setup. We felt it very important to do that testing prior to Christmas so that hopefully people could come out, get a test for whatever we could provide, which is going to be around 200 tests, and maybe keep some people from going to their family members or traveling that may have been or may be positive for COVID. So that's an example of why we maintain that emergency, is so that we can work in cooperation with federal, state, and local who are utilizing that funding in order to work with the continuing pandemic. I by no means have a direct contact to the governor, but I'm sure he's well aware of the uptick in numbers, as all of us. While he restricted the executive order that he had put out, basically eliminating a lot of the executive orders, it still is very specific to ensuring that we're making good care and making sure that we're addressing the pandemic, and that if any of the divisions of the state wish to make a directive towards it, they could do so. However, it's by the governor's approval.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, so I'm not disagreeing. This is just what was told to me in 2020, and there was pushback on it, and so now it's ending. If we end it and the governor decides to extend it, there's nothing to say that we can't bring in a new order. We're going into the second year of this. If the state is ending it, to be in step with them, I think that the city should be in step with them, since that was the reason why we opposed the lifting back the last time it was proposed. So I don't think that it's an issue to end it, and then if the governor decides to extend it, that we can enter into a new one based on what we understand that the new order would be, or any changes of such. So I'm not challenging the mayor's authority on this. It says in a proper event, she has the ability to do so. What we're trying to do is define a proper event and just give it guidelines and not bypass the council along the way. And that's my concern. We have the same voting rights and as the mayor, and I would like to see that the voice of the people continue to be heard, even through a pandemic, and that the elected officials have some voice in the direction of the city during this time. That's all. And I think we have just, as it was stated earlier, most people didn't even know we're still in a state of emergency. Well, that's true.
I still know.
Well, I do too. And I was told the reason why we are two reasons: to be in step with the state and for the federal dollars. So if the state ends theirs at the end of the month, the chances are we could lose federal money too. Right?
That is correct.
Okay. So if we're going to be in lockstep with the state, I say we move forward. If he decides, the governor decides to extend it, then we can always have a new state of emergency issued. I'd just like to see the council involved in it.
Well, while again, this is probably the determination of the city councilor, I don't disagree with that if the governor eliminates the state of emergency, that we do so also. However, there's a provision in that to make everything going forward a supermajority just to make a declaration. And that is not the normal standard for dealing with states of emergency across the federal government, state governments, and local governments.
Has the governor, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you finished?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the governor, and perhaps, Jeremy, you can review with us what the new protocol is for any mandates through the state of emergency with the state. What are the steps and procedures that the state has given municipalities and counties?
Are you referring to House Bill 271?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, okay. So House Bill 271, which was passed last year, that does put certain restrictions on orders that essentially do related to lockdown orders and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that in order for basically a lockdown order or anything that closes businesses or keeps people from gathering or anything like that, that can be imposed by the whoever is in charge of imposing that. In this case, it would be the mayor, but is subject to review by the governing body. And they could do so. They have to do so every 30 days, but they could actually, at any point in time, elect to end that. But that particular provision doesn't apply here because the current emergency order that's in effect doesn't do any of those things. It doesn't create a lockdown, or it doesn't, restrict people from gathering or anything like that.
Wasn't my question. I just wanted to review that it has to be voted on, and every 30 days, correct?
For orders that fall under HB 271,
Right.
That's correct.
Right. And then after how many days or how many times does it go into you have to have a supermajority?
I'm not aware. It's a simple majority is required in order to keep it going. It's just a simple majority is required in order to keep going a lockdown or anything like that.
And there's no provision in there that after 90 days it goes to a supermajority.
No.
Once you do 180 days, is that all you can do in a given calendar year?
I'm not aware of that restriction.
Okay, so we'll review it again.
Okay.
But that is important to note. So I think we need to make ourselves aware of that too. So I'm not sure. My point was, I think we need to be more. No city has gone through this before. We're in uncharted waters. I think the one concern that I had is that the council didn't have a lot of involvement in the beginning, which I don't think was right. I got several people in my district that voiced their concerns that the voice of the people wasn't being heard, that decisions were being made with one elected official and 4 others that were not. And so they just wanted to make sure that their voices were heard and that we had the opportunity to give concerns and direction for how we maneuvered through the pandemic. So I think we've learned a lot over the 2 years. I hope that we have, and I hope there's a manual in place of things we did well and didn't do well. And as we move forward.
As well as a manual of the procedures
Yeah,
in which we
right.
follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not sure that the framers of the city charter in the 60s were even thinking about a pandemic.
Actually, the section 44 of the state statute was, I believe, 1956 as part of the civil defense plan.
Okay, well, I'm just referring to the charter in
Well,
terms of the
but
power.
it
And I
follows-
understand what you're saying.
It follows all of that.
Sure,
Yes.
because it does talk about purposes of military law, those kind of things. So I was just trying to put some guidelines in place should we decide we want to go very restrictive, another lockdown, where it affects businesses and those kind of things, that we're pretty clear that we're going to give ample opportunity to represent our constituents and the businesses in our districts. So that's why I'm asking that it be lifted. If we go into another extension, then of course the mayor's within her right to issue another state of emergency.
Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor? Oh, go right ahead.
No, I'll defer to Councilwoman DeLucia.
Well, section 3 in the resolution ignores our charter. Under our charter 2.5, the mayor is the person to make the emergency. I believe that you wanted to involve all of us and ask for our input in the 18 months we've lived with the pandemic. But section 3 under this resolution talks about future state of emergencies shall require a super vote of the council. That doesn't follow the charter. You can't change the charter because we like your resolution better. So I can't support your resolution.
Well, then we can amend section 3.
Councilmember Perkins?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, did any of the authors of this resolution or this non-ordinance action contact you prior to this meeting to discuss what the ramifications or understanding of what is being presented to us for your input, being the incident command commander?
No.
City Councilor, with the statute at 271, did that specifically involve with the state of emergency, or is that more involved with ongoing lockdowns, mandatory mandates, or does that touch on the initial emergency response or the initial emergency mandates?
It does, House Bill 271 doesn't address emergency orders generally. It addresses health orders, orders related to public health, and specifically, in what we're talking about here, those dealing with any sort of lockdowns or restrictions on gatherings, yes.
But not for the initial state of emergency to get ourselves set to be prepared to work an emergency.
That's correct.
So it sounds completely to me that the authors of this didn't do their research and or homework on any level here. So I will be voting no on this.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
again, this council, the last time it was brought up, said that we had to keep it to be in step with the state, their words, not mine, and for federal funding. So and I asked the question to the city manager, so basically we're staying in a state of emergency so that we can just get access to money. And the answer was yes. That's all. So, given what the council has said in the past, that since we were to be in lockstep with the state, they're ending it at the end of the year. And that's all I'm asking, that we stay in lockstep. That was everybody's position that voted no a couple of times on this. So now let's see, are we really true to our words that we were concerned about being in step? We can amend section 3, we can take it out, that's fine. You gave me some input through the city clerk about this, and you advised me that section 3 was a problem. And I said, well, that's okay, we can have a discussion. And we can.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so there was council's thought. So, and council likes to review it, and we've had discussions about other resolutions as we've gone along. But, so I will amend it to eliminate section 3 if that makes everybody feel better. So I'll move to eliminate section 3 from the resolution.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I appreciate Councilmember Steinmeier's sort of derogatory statement that if we feel better, we'll vote for it. The resolution's illegal because it violates the charter. Section 2.5 is very plain in its language. So it has nothing to do with feelings at all. I won't vote for the amendment or this non-ordinance action item.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the motion?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes?
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
I hate to ask this, what one are we doing?
To
Amending
remove-
section
To
3?
remove section 3.
Okay, yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
No.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Is there any further discussion on the action item as amended? Madam City Clerk, this isn't impacting the voting on this, but I would like to have reference after this meeting to the meetings where we voted on this before, so I can review the discussion or the minute meetings. I'm Councilman Steinmeier, I'm not disagree. I'm not telling you you're mistaken. I just don't recall ever having a discussion that we have to follow, be in lockstep with the state. We were not in lockstep with the state when the state of emergency was declared, so I'm sorry, that's not clear to me. But that's irregardless of this item this evening.
I would like to clarify one
Yeah.
thing before. So right now, as it stands, section 3 has been amended from the resolution. Okay, which I agree was problematic. To clarify, and I think this is where there's some confusion on this issue, because Becky and I had this discussion earlier. The resolution references the state of emergency as amended a couple different times, most recently on June 7th, 2021. Okay, that state of emergency was, while approved by the council, was technically just issued by the mayor. So it was issued by the mayor, and under the charter, only the mayor has the ability to remove a state of emergency. So essentially, you all can take back, so you on June 7th, when you approved her state of emergency, that technically wasn't legally necessary in order to take effect. So I wasn't here. I wasn't here at that point in time, but technically, she's allowed, under the charter, the mayor has the sole authority to issue a state of emergency, and according to subsection C, the proclamation issued in accordance with the provisions of this section shall remain in effect continuously from the date and time of the issuance thereof for such period of time as specifically described therein, or until the issuance of a proclamation determining an emergency no longer exists, whichever occurs first. So that's within the mayor's authority to do that. So you all can certainly take back your support of the state of emergency. That you all gave that back in June, and you all can take that away at this point if you want. But just taking that away in and of itself does not end the state of emergency, because that's up to the mayor to issue and to take away. I just wanted to clarify that issue.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be clear that I supported the removal of Section 3. I'm not going to support this action item. For the reasons that have been stated regarding the charter, and what Mr. Cova has articulated in terms of there was action, and we took a lot of actions to say the council could support the state of emergency, but that doesn't give the council the authority to remove or impose a state of emergency. I don't know what the governor is going to do before the end of the month. We don't know what's around the corner. So if anything, I feel that this is premature until the end of the month, which we still have 11 days. It doesn't require a council meeting. When the state of emergency was put into place, it doesn't require the council support. As the fire chief has said, it's a proclamation by the mayor. So if the state of emergency expires in the state of Missouri on December 31st, we can determine then what action to take. But I feel that it is very premature at this point. So I just wanted to be clear about that. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll. Oh, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this until after the first of the year then.
Okay, our next council meeting is January the 10th? 3rd. There's a motion to postpone till January the 3rd.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to postpone? Okay, please call the roll on the motion to postpone.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes?
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Weir?
No. Motion passes. Moving on to our ordinances, Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-084, an ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements and general utility easements for the Ralston Stormwater Project, project number 131805, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes?
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-085, an ordinance terminating tax increment financing within the Hartman Heritage Park redevelopment area and authorizing certain actions relating thereto. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes?
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-086, an ordinance of the City of Independence, Missouri, approving the transfer of real property to the National Park Service. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes?
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes.
Bill number 21-518, an ordinance declaring the need to acquire real property for the amelioration of conditions which constitute blight in the city for negotiation or, if necessary, by condemnation, and authorizing the city manager to obtain and execute all instruments necessary for acquisition of such land and declaring an emergency. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, so I just have a few points here. Okay, so the state of Missouri actually has a statute that specifically bans eminent domain if it's solely for economic purposes. Now, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is solely for economic purposes. What I'm saying is that the perception could be there that it is. Because last week, in my discussion with the city manager, he mentioned, we've been told about all the problems with this building, but not one code violation's been issued, no tickets, no liens have been put on it. So I believe if this ends up in court, we might have a problem. Since, I mean, I don't know, I just think we're gonna have a problem with it. The other thing I've also found, I don't think we're in compliance with the Missouri State Constitution, specific to Article 1, Section 28, which states that private property can't be taken for private use except for private ways of necessity and except for drains and ditches across the lands as other for agricultural and sanitary purposes. It was mentioned earlier that the company that owns this is World Class Holdings by one of our public speakers. And they have had all kinds of problems the last few years. They had a raid on their office. This is in 2019. They've had numerous bankruptcies from various subsidiaries over the last couple of years. So to be quite honest, I'm not even sure this property could be sold at this point if it's held up in bankruptcy court. So with all that said, I just want to say I want to see this property redeveloped. It obviously looks horrible. I mean, when you come into the city. But with everything I said, I just don't think I can, in good conscience, vote for it tonight. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I figured if we sent this out to them, they might actually answer us. We've tried for 4 years. Is there anything that tells me we can't talk to them and say, fix the fire problem, fix the police problem, and not proceed to eminent domain?
Mr. City Manager, you spoke about this 2 weeks ago when we had this on for an emergency about the various steps and timeline that this would take. This is evident, obviously a first step. No further action can be taken, if I remember correctly, for a minimum of 60 days, allowing for the property owner to respond, correct?
You're correct, Mayor. 60 days is the next step of public notification to the property owner.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just have one more thing. So I remember seeing a press release, I believe it was from the police department a couple of years ago, when there was a lot of the cruising going on along Nolan Road, and they were able to contact the property owners. I mean, I don't understand why, if they were able to contact them, why nobody else has been able to. That's all.
Madam Mayor.
I don't know, but Mr. Winship has testified twice that he's made multiple attempts. Our Economic Development Corporation has been involved for many years trying to find redevelopers for this property with no response. The city manager has attempted both by phone, email, certified letter with no response, and potential developers who have proactively tried to contact the property owner to purchase the property have also communicated to us that they have received no response. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted earlier, but thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Mr. City Manager, how much did we pay to tear down the garden center there in the corner?
It's about $75,000.
Have we gotten any recoupment for that or being responded to by the owners at all?
Look over there at Tom Scannell and have him give you a thumbs up or down.
I can't see him. Why don't you come up here?
I like the up and down myself, but okay.
Did we get our check, Tom?
So what we do, so after we demolish a building, we prepare a special tax bill. That bill is sent to the property owner. As of what I know right now, we have not been reimbursed for that. However, that tax bill stays on that property, and that when they pay their taxes, that will get reimbursed back to the city.
And theoretically, we could file a lawsuit to enforce that tax bill, Mr. Cover, and we could take the property and sell it if we wanted, couldn't we?
We could file suit to collect it. We would not be able to foreclose on the property through that process. That would have to happen. I mean, I suppose we could try to get it attached or something like that. I mean, it's.
Gotcha.
But we could definitely file suit in order to pursue those costs, yes.
Of course, we'd have to be able to serve the people before we can proceed with the suit,
That's correct.
which we haven't been able to do because we can't find them because they won't be responsive. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Now, another question. If we go through with this process, I want to be clear because I've had some people ask me, The property owner, we are not stealing their property. If the eminent domain goes through, they will be compensated for their property, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The price of the property would be determined by a commission that would decide what the fair market value is for the property, and that's what they would be paid, yes.
Yeah, so the city is not stealing somebody's private property and giving it to somebody else.
No, that's illegal.
Thank you.
One question though, if it's tied up in bankruptcy or if there's other issues that are tying up the property, what good is it for us to go in and begin these proceedings? I mean, it'll just complicate the matter, correct?
So I don't know if it's tied up in bankruptcy. I don't know what that effect would have. I mean, technically, with eminent domain, we can do a published notice. There are ways to proceed without their involvement. However, if that property is tied up in some sort of bankruptcy or something like that, then there may be another court that is going to step in and say, no, we're not going to allow you to do this because of that. That's possible. At this point, I don't have enough information to give an informed answer, though.
Mr. Cover, is it a responsibility if we're going to proceed with this type of action, which is within our right to do? I mean, it's constitutionally protected. We know that. But would we need to have code violations documented? Do we need to have something that's building up to the issue of blight and condemnation?
So you don't have to have that, obviously, and sometimes you do. We would have to there would have to be a blight analysis done by a third party in order to justify that, yes, this is blight. So obviously, if there were a history of code violations, I assume that they would use that towards their finding of blight, but that isn't required in order to have a finding of blight.
So there's two types of condemnation or eminent domain usage that we can have. We can have one for public use, which means you're building a utility, a school,
roads,
sure, fire stations, something like that. And then there's another one.
Yes.
And do you know what one that is?
And that's the blight designation that we'd be pursuing here.
So, we would say it would be rather than public use, it'd be public purpose.
It would be for a public purpose. That's correct.
Is it to be tied to an economic development plan that is critical for that plan to go through? I mean, is that for the plan, in order for it to be successful in a segment of a city, does it have to be tied to a clear, concise economic development plan?
It would not have to be. It does not have to be tied to a plan. No.
It doesn't.
No.
You're sure? I'm not challenging you. I'm just asking.
As far as I know, it does not. As far as I know, it does not have to be tied to a plan.
Okay. All right. So, if we have the two points, are you familiar with the Missouri statute 523.271, where it talks about exercise of eminent domain over private property for economic development purposes prohibited? And then it gives a definition.
I don't know off the top of my head. I believe.
Yeah. Listen, I think the development group is a good group. They're tied to a lot of good nonprofits. Thelma's Kitchen, I like Thelma's Kitchen. I like what they're doing. I would like to do it. I just want to make sure we're not going to be doing something that has the appearance that we are taking without doing due process. We're doing all we can, because I know that we've had other businesses in this city that have been interested in this property as well. They've met the same type of frustrations, and so this isn't the first time this has happened. So I would just like to have seen us take a more progressive action on it and see it happen before this point. So I just want to make sure we're not going to be in violation of anything related to state statute or what has been deemed necessary constitutionally.
Sure. And this is the very first initial step to even start this process. So, I mean, I've got a whole checklist and timeline in place when and if you all choose to move forward. And so one part of that is going through and checking all the applicable statutes and making sure we're checking all the boxes. So, I mean, we've got a process in place, but I'm not going to go through that entire process unless and until you all decide, yes, we're authorizing you to proceed. But we've got a plan in place if and when you decide to do that.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Not only do we have a checklist that we do, the city also has done this before. And some of the members on the council were here and some were not here. The success of Inglewood is some of the tools that we're getting ready to use here, not necessarily to take it to the full length of what we're wanting to do through the court process, but simply to get the people to the table for discussion. That's the intent. And that's what we did in Inglewood with the 3-story building, the old Comprehensive Mental Health building. And the success there has paid in dividends. So that's what we're doing here. So we understand the process, and we understand the tools that we have to make independence better.
So, Mr. City Manager, to again review some of the discussion that was held when we had this on for the emergency 2 weeks ago, and I will remind the public that this is still an emergency and will require 5 votes in favor to pass. Is that correct, Madam City Clerk? Sorry.
Sorry. Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
So just because we postponed the second reading, that does not take the emergency clause off of it. It will require 5 votes. While the Englewood Arts is a great story, the process was not as predictable as this process is. We did not determine to proceed with with eminent domain. We were approached by a developer who cannot purchase or acquire the property and came to the Economic Development Corporation. Then they also were not able to make any headway in contacting the property owner. Then they involved the city. We were not able to make any headway on contacting the property owner. So this is a tool that we have available to us to remove blighted properties, redevelop important corridors. Nolan Road has an economic development plan that is in place. So I don't feel like any of those pieces are missing. But this situation is even better than the situation in Englewood, because we have a developer who is ready to accept this property and take matters into his own hands if we can get, as you say, the developer to the table. We held on to the Englewood building far longer than I think any of us wanted to before we were able to complete that transaction. I do not want to do that again. I do not want to own property. This developer does not have an exclusive right to the development of this property. He's simply somebody who has come to us and said, I would like to develop this property. I need your help. Mr. City Manager, I just want to be sure, and Mr. Cover, that through this process, if there's other people who wish to come forward with plans for development of this property and have the resources to do that and to make this a smooth transaction, is there anything that would prevent us from entertaining other ideas?
No.
Thank you. Yes.
My biggest problem with this is the city did their due diligence on this. I mean, if I have a piece of property out here and I don't want to sell it to you and I don't want to lease it to you, that's my right. I don't have to answer the phone. And if I don't, then, I mean, it'd be like going to your house and saying, hey, I'm going to give you $100,000 for your house. You say, no, I want $200,000. So the city comes in and condemns it, says it's blight. There's no records. You've got one up the street that's had 30 violations. There's been tons of people wanting it. We haven't moved a bit over there. Nolan Fashion Square sitting there, 30 things. You've got one with this one, 75,000. It's in, the government has seized this man's things. He has 39 different businesses. I don't think that this city has done their due diligence to find out what's going on there. A bank could own this. Bankruptcy judge could have it. I mean, you're just going out here, you turn around and get sued for this. I mean, I just can't go down this road. I don't think it's right because someone doesn't answer the phone that all of a sudden I'm going to turn it into blight. I see blight all over this city. That is not the worst place. I would love to see a hotel down there. I just don't think this is the right process to do this. This developer, evidently, he doesn't want to spend a lot of money because, I mean, what is there, a contract for $1.5 million or something to get from Kmart for 3 or 5 years? You add all that stuff, it ends up being $13-14 million. Well, if he doesn't want to sell it for $5 million, I can't blame him. If I don't want to answer the phone, I'm getting my income. I can't agree to take someone's business away just because I'm not answering the phone. I'm sorry. I won't support this.
There's a big difference between Nolan Fashion Square and this property, and I just want to point this out. We know who owns Nolan Fashion Square. We know how to contact them. If they don't want to sell it, you're right. That's totally up to them. We can continue to put code violations on it, ticket them, so on and so forth. But if you don't want to sell your property, you don't have to, but you can't let it deteriorate and decline and prevent opportunities for the rest of the city. So there is a key difference. I just want to be clear. I agree with Nolan Fashion Square. There's a lot of people who would like to see that redeveloped, myself included. But we certainly don't have any trouble, would not have any trouble contacting the owner and having a discussion if there was a developer who was seriously interested in developing that property. We could easily connect them with the owner of the property. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, ordinance fails.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I'm confused. This isn't the emergency today. This is the second reading today. If it's a 4-3 vote, how do we lose that? I'm
Madam City
so
Clerk.
confused.
It's still an emergency ordinance. All you did from the last meeting was postpone the second reading to this, but it's still being read as an emergency ordinance.
That surprises me. I didn't hear you read it twice. I thought last time we postponed it and just make it a second reading.
Well, you postponed the second reading of the emergency ordinance. I mean, there's multiple components to an emergency ordinance. It's not just the reading side of it. So the other components of the emergency ordinance is that it'll go into effect immediately. If there was some sort of, if we wanted to change this, then there should have been something to change it from being an emergency ordinance.
I mentioned that in my comments a few moments ago, that this was an emergency and we require 5 votes in favor to pass. If you'll proceed with first readings.
Bill number 21-087, an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Offenses and Penalties of the Independent City Code, and adding Article 9, Offenses and Penalties of Shopping Carts. Bill number 21-088, an ordinance authorizing an agreement with the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the Public Transit Operating Assistance Grant in the amount of $16,504 for operating expenses associated with transit service for the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and making the necessary appropriations. Bill number 21-809, or excuse me, yes, 089. I don't know. An ordinance finding, determining, and declaring the necessity of acquiring temporary construction and grading easements and general utility easements for the West Jones Road Culvert Replacement Project, project number 70131802, authorizing the negotiation and eminent domain proceedings if necessary, approving the plans and specifications for the project, authorizing the use of experts as needed, authorizing and directing the execution of documents and the payment of funds to property owners or others holding property rights in conjunction with the project. Bill number 21-090, an ordinance terminating tax increment financing within the Mount Washington redevelopment area, dissolving the special allocation fund accounts related thereto, and authorizing certain actions relating thereto.
Okay, thank you. As always, I'll draw your attention to the information only section of our agenda, as particularly our COVID-19 semi-monthly update. This brings us to council member comments. I'll start on my right with Councilman Huff.
I have nothing this evening.
Councilman Perkins.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Councilman Stewart.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember DeLucci.
I'm so sorry to say this. I would like someone to look up the variance requirements under the state statute, because I think what we did was wrong, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to take it from the variance and give it to Planning Commission. So that's one question, and I don't need an answer till after the first of the year. And number two, anyone who wants to see the city scene, if you want to get one, all you have to do is call Sam. Her number is 816-325-7170. I'm getting the city scene in paper, and I get it to read it with my tea. That's very important to me, so if anyone else feels the same way, make that phone call, and you'll get on the list. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Steinmeier.
Nothing tonight.
Councilman Hobart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, just on behalf of all of us, happy holidays to everybody here and out there. It's been a long year. It's been a long pandemic. It's been a long everything. And everybody's fought and worked hard and done their best. So we certainly appreciate that. For the folks out there that struggle, especially around the holidays, you know, take care of yourself. Please don't be ashamed or be embarrassed or please reach out. There's lots of resources available for folks that the holidays are particularly hard times. So no matter no matter how you celebrate or what you celebrate, just be safe and have a good holidays. Thank you much.
Okay. I have a few things. First of all, to piggyback on Councilman Hobart's comments, we had planned to have the second one of our town hall meetings on mental health last Wednesday. That was the day that we had predicted and experienced some very severe weather. So out of a caution, we decided that it would be best not to have that event last Wednesday night, which was planned at the Genealogy Center. And we had an excellent program lined up for all of you, particularly in dealing with the stresses and emotions that often accompany the holiday season. So I regret that we weren't able to do that, but we will get that rescheduled, and I hope that we will have great participation and that we're going to continue to have these focus on the mental health and wellness in our community. COVID testing, as you heard, we received a grant of $25,000 and that bought us 200 COVID tests. They will be available tomorrow from 4 to 7 p.m. at Adventure Oasis. There is a sign up, which you can find on our city website and our social media platforms. Christina or Meg, I can't see you over there, but how many, they like popped up like little Jack in the boxes, Jill in the boxes. How many people do we have signed up already, and how many spots do we have yet to fill?
members of the council. My name is Christina Heinen. I'm the Director of Health and Animal Services. I have not checked during our meeting, so I can't give you an accurate number, but we still had plenty of slots to fill, well over 100 to fill when I checked earlier today.
And can you rattle off that that address for us? Meg, I know can.
Meg can.
So people can sign up. We likely will have some space available if people just want to show up, drive up, then we likely will be able to accommodate some people too.
Yes, to reserve your spot, the shortened link is indep.us/C19 testing DEC 21.
C19 testing, December 21.
Yep.
Okay. These are the saliva tests that we have continually received. Very easy to self-administer. There will be Medical Reserve Corps volunteers to walk you through how to do that. We will take them from you. We will deliver them to the lab, and you will get your results within 24 to 48 hours. In the past, we've seen those tests come back in even shorter times than that. So if you're planning on being around people during the holidays or traveling, you may consider taking advantage of the opportunity to get tested so you do not inadvertently get sick or make other people sick. Finally, this evening we have another special presentation to give. On November 8th of 2021, the Government Finance Officers Association presented a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of Independence Finance Department for the fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2020. The Government Finance Officers Association established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting program in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go above and beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles and prepare comprehensive and annual financial reports. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting and represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management, according to the Government Finance Officers Association. To commemorate this achievement, a medallion was awarded as a testament to the City of Independence Finance Department's commitment to producing annual reports that evidence the spirit of full disclosure and transparency. So I have here, my gosh, it's heavy, is our plaque that we display the medals that we have received for the Certificate of Achievement dating back to 2012. You'll notice that 2019 is missing. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that we submitted that year. You can't find it? I thought there was one year we didn't submit. So there should be one here. So we have, your city has received this each year. You can be assured that your finances are being accurately reported, and I wanted to invite our finance director and our staff up to receive this very special recognition. Thank you very much. And I'm sure Meg would like to get a picture. Okay, thank you very much. And finally, I just want to wish everybody a very safe and happy holiday. We will not plan to have a study session next week. It's a very shortened week. So we will see you on January the 3rd. Mr. City Manager, anything else this evening?
That's it for me.
We're adjourned.